Construction Group, your South Florida Permitting and Code Compliance Specialist. I'm here with a mentor and a friend who has known me for a really long time. His name is Nixon Lebrun, and every conversation I have with Nixon is interesting. We share a lot of the same educational training, we share a lot of the same backgrounds that are process-oriented on the municipal level, and we share a lot of the same beliefs. When I close open permits and code violations and things like that, Nixon deals with long-range and short-range planning issues.
Yeah. Current land use.
So I just want you to mention to our viewers exactly your educational background and what you've done to serve the public on a city level.
Hello, everybody. Again, like Ben said, my name is Nixon Lebrun. I work as a city planner, and my background, I studied at FAU, did my undergrad and graduate studies in urban planning. Went back for public administration. It's important, for people to know when they're dealing with open permit and closed permit, because it's not just like you have to close a permit. There may have been a reason why that permit was never closed, because zoning could have been an issue, plumbing. But in most cases, and people really don't know about zoning and planning. And then I used to call it, the invisible hand of government. And then really, and surely, you cannot have any development without dealing with zoning. At some level, either at the beginning, at the beginning and at the end, you're going to deal with zoning, because we still have to sign on the permits. When you come for the rezoning, for variance, for platting, you deal with zoning. So, and my job is when people, have, those issues, because it's always good, before you start anything, to stop by a zoning department.
Yeah.
Get
zoning like for example, we had a lot of tenants when we were working for the city. They said, "Oh, we already signed our lease, but we didn't check to see if they could do that particular use in that space."
Exactly.
So like a zoning verification.
Or zoning verification. Yeah, and then this is important. You have to do your due diligence, and then. You can see a commercial building, maybe the use that you want to put there is not permitted in that zoning district.
Yeah.
And so now you into a lease, 3, 4, 5 months in, and then you still cannot open your business. And then that use may be permitted, but that may require additional, approval. That may require a special exception. That may, and then a conditional use.
Yeah.
So now you're already into the lease, you're paying, yet you cannot get any money back. So that's why zoning is important, and then it's a matter of educating the public. And then you are Ben, because of your background, you can also help your client, because you know the inner workings of the zoning department, and then what the code entails, because people don't know about all this. And then even where we put a lot of cities where they put their zoning code, it's not that friendly. And then you say, oh, this is a link to Municode. What is Municode?
Yeah.
People don't know those things.
Before Miramar and North Miami and Miami Gardens, when you were working in Homestead, so right now you're doing long-range planning.
Yes.
Before, like when I worked with you in Miami Gardens, you were dealing with the day-to-day public. Dealing with group home applications, zoning verification.
Letter, addressing, and building permits, zoning inspections, landscaping, all those things, yeah.
What's your take on reoccupancy?
Reoccupancy, and I think it's important. Because in a lot of communities, you have a lot of homes, residences that may have been in violation because the previous owners may have done things illegally.
Not to code or...
Yeah, illegally meaning without permits.
Sure.
Without pulling up permits from the city, not that they're doing anything.
They didn't kill someone.
Exactly. So, the purpose, of reoccupancy, because I think that started, at Miami-Dade County. They wanted to make sure that, those structures that may have been built or those additions without permit, they are safe.
And that's the only way that when they're transferring ownership, they could get them to bring them into compliance.
Into compliance, exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I think, other cities can be, or employees can be overzealous. They went above and beyond, what, the intent of that ordinance.
Sure. They're looking for health safety violations, and so, for example, investors were flipping homes, and then residents and business owners were coming to the city, and they were like, you guys need to protect me. However, sometimes when the inspector comes, they're looking for things that aren't realistic, or they're looking for things that might be beyond health safety violation.
Exactly.
It's mainly like if you have a zone duplex and you're operating 3 or 4 units out of the thing.
And then in a lot of cities, and then that has been the emphasis as well, whether or not there has been an illegal subdivision of that residence.
Yeah.
But now you see more and more because the affordable housing crisis that you have.
Yeah.
In a lot of cities, municipalities, and something that has always been allowed in the Florida statute, to have ADU. ADU meaning accessory dwelling units, because a lot of people, they cannot afford a place, low income, very low income.
Yeah.
So that's why that's one of the push. And then some
they can't afford a 2-2 for $12, $13, $14,
$2,100. Even a young graduate, just graduate from college, you don't have a job yet. So if you don't go back and live in your parents' basement, where can you live? Yeah. So those things happen. But again, the purpose of that is for health safety violations. And also people now see it kind of expanding that to see if there was illegal subdivision, maybe or single family have been turned into a duplex.
Sure.
Like you say, it's when you transfer ownership, that's when the cities can address those issues if they exist. Yeah.
One of the things that I never got to do as a planner was see things from their inception, like sit on a DRC and see how a plat becomes from all the way from
a big tract of land,
zoning, all the way from getting a certificate of occupancy. Yeah. I've only seen things when they're handled in the building department.
And then to your point, and this is one of the most gratifying things for a planner. Once you work on a project from the inception, from the pre-application meeting, where the developer or the prospective developer comes to you and then start, throwing ideas, what they can do there. Or they may have, some of them come with a specific plan, and then they work with staff, and then we kind of tweak it, and then to make sure that they meet the requirements of the code. And then, again, that's one of the most gratifying things for planners, And then when you see that, 10, 15 years later, you see that building. So you feel like you have your DNA is in that building because you've been part of that process.
So when I go, when I went to a lot of these, I didn't understand. I went to these public hearings, and I saw, not many people there, but you see people who own property in the area, who want to buy property in the area, who are potential investors. You see all these different people. I don't know. And sometimes at the long range plans, and the charrettes, I laugh. I'm like, what is this planning exercise or charrette?
Placation.
So you're engaging. So you're.
I've always seen myself as a public servant. Yes, I do planning. This is more in my day-to-day activities and working for. But I'm much more about protecting the public interest.
If I lived in an affected area, and I couldn't move my car, I don't want higher density. Developers say, I talk with developers and people all the time, and they build these $1 million condos and all these, and then I ask them, I'm like, they're like, and when the condo market turns in the real estate, they're like, we can't sell our product, and I tell them, why don't you build affordable housing? And they're like, it all comes down to, like Linda was saying, like I was telling you, it comes down to motivation. It comes down to economics, local economic development.
Because there are many drivers, of growth. But one thing also we have to, because the purpose of of long-range planning.
You serve in an advisory capacity, or planners in general do.
Yes.
We're not the decision makers.
We're not the legislator either.
But we know the process.
Yeah. But be that as it may, we also hold a lot of power.
dissemination of information. They taught me in planning school, you know, again, you know, when you're checking off those things on the GIS overlay map, you could choose for
but then again, those
you could use the same set of facts and tell different stories.
No, not just that. Those policies. Yes, we are not legislators. We are not, you know, decision makers. Those policies, they're not being written by the city commission. The planners wrote those same policies.
The planners wrote those. So basically, yeah, no, city administration.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know, yeah, but you know, yeah, people like to say, oh, we know those are, you know, those are the regulations. Yeah. But those regulations, they were not written by the mayor or the council members. We would.
And there are plans that get worked on, or things that get worked on for a long time.
No, but I was going to go back to one thing. Okay. No, to one thing you said earlier. I mean, I think density is such a dirty word. But you know, but when you look at the rate of population growth in Florida, I mean, all those sensitive, you know, lands that we have out west, I mean, at some point you have to accommodate, and then this is one of the things, you know, one of the criteria when you
are they going to build past Weston or
no, this is one of the criteria when you submit or evaluation and appraisal review comprehensive plan amendment to the state. They look at those things. It has to be based on professionally approved methods, you know, population projection. That's one of the key things. You have to accommodate your current population and your future populations. So density, that's what we have really. Yes, it has to be measured, and then you don't want to put like a 20-story building in the middle of a single family. But you're going to see that happen because South Florida population is growing.
Yeah. As we're allowing more single family, new construction, it's shifting the population.
It shifts the population, and then it also costs, you know, I mean, the price of land for multifamily becomes higher because there's such a scarcity of those as well.
Correct. Supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
And then so that's why that, I mean, we're gonna have to put all, I mean, hands on deck to really, because there's, I mean, to me, I think, you know, that is more important. That's why I have a conversation with a coworker talking about, you know, ADU, stuff like that, stuff with, I say, you know, sometimes your policy have to trump those regulations, because the intent of the policy is to address affordable, let's say affordable housing for ADU, for example. If you put too many regulations, you're going to defeat that purpose.
Correct.
So there's a balance, and then so that's why, you know, and a lot of time, you know, people doing zoning do not talk with people doing all of those long-range planners. I mean, zoning derives its authority from planning. So you work on the planning.
Well, I mean, I think the practical, the short term, like you're saying, those planners, their rules and their scope derive from the long range plan.
From the long range, you cannot go wrong.
But again, I think the difference was if you look at public administration, working with the public and not working with the public. So again, like, I enjoy working with the public and dealing with the people, and I've always
know their needs,
know their service, and it's really interesting because as a public servant, I was kind of I was young, I didn't have much job and work experience to begin with, but you kind of feel like you're in a small place right here.
You have to know your role.
Yeah.
I mean, as a public servant, and then as you grow into your role,
as you grow in life,
in life, and then you understand you don't take anything personal. If it go against my values, my skills are for sale. Sure. Never my integrity.
You could take your skills other places. You could build on those skills.
Exactly. So if you feel you're in an environment that you feel like, you know, your values are being compromised by what is being asked of you, then you leave. You don't have to stay, because there's such thing as what you call a continuum of compromise. Because you compromise one thing, and then you're going to go to the next one, and then the next one.
Yeah.
So I mean, that has always been my MO. I do what is. I always try to do. I'm not saying I do all right, but you know, in my line of work, I've always tried to work for the public interest.
Like, describe a situation, not a house, not a person, not one of the cities that you've worked in, but where you've gotten to help someone who was trying to do the right thing in a hardship situation, like we talked about, like the elderly person who has an open permit, or something gets found during a reoccupancy, or not even a reoccupancy, something gets pulled up on the lien search, and the sellers, the property owners coming into the city, and they're not your home flipper, they're not your investor, they're not your corporate owner.
No, I've seen situations, I cannot tell, from other places, but places I've worked before, and then we talk about that. And a lot of time, you see, the owner, the buyer, they don't know much. They make, and like the realtor come to them and say, oh, this is expired you and this and that. The buyer doesn't know anything about that. And a lot of them, that's the first time, they're so excited getting their first home. They don't know about, all those things about city government. And then they make that decision based on the property they were shown.
Basically, sometimes the city informs you have an open permit, or that the permit's going to expire in 180 days, and sometimes you find out about it on the lien search.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't really communicate with those people and tell them, just like, this permit's about to expire, they send you a notice. And they don't know, and the city just start accumulating,
I was thinking about creating a table. Well, I have an internal table for myself, because I call and do pencil searches all the time, but I was, some cities, they've embraced technology. Some cities haven't, with their permit
still working
issues.
on it.
Yeah, so some cities you could go online and look at the permits. Some you can't go online. You have really little cities like the Village of Biscayne Park that are a little, jurisdiction, but with you can't standardize something. I mean, look, I always had a joke, and no, the permit runners had a long-running joke in the building department, and they always wish for standard. One said, I wish that all of the processes were standardized. The other one said, then we wouldn't have a job. So I thought that
yeah. Well, but standards or not, standardization or not, people do the job.
Tell me some things, and tell our viewers some things about how you have used your experience in municipal government to help other people outside your municipal government, without a conflict of interest, without an ownership, assist property owners or landowners in commercial things. How have you used your experience to do that?
One of the things, I've worked with many cities, especially in Dade County. I work in Miami-Dade County, Olmsted, North Miami.
It's such a small community because you come across people.
Yeah, and then I basically my familiarity with that system. And then even, after I left, I told you, a lot of people still calling me. And then I've helped a lot of people. From doing stuff in Olmsted, in other municipalities, Miami-Dade County, North Miami, Miami Gardens. Because I have that familiarity. I know the code, and then I know where to find information as well.
Yeah.
So that experience, and then me also know working in the field.
Yeah.
So I kind of guide them, tell them the type of question.
I've seen also, like, for example, cities, and on my side, on my applications, I've seen cities try and standardize processes. Like, for example, instead of doing mitigating a lien or whatever, they'll have a lien amnesty program, or they'll invent something. So not only to standardize the process, but to
but I think because this is what complaining becomes. That can be part of your redevelopment goal in the city. Because if you see not just one property, a lot of properties in the city, they're facing the same issues. What do you do to address that? Because your job is just to penalize people. It's to protect,
they say in code enforcement, they say 100% of people like firefighters, 50% of people like police, and nobody likes building and code inspectors. because because at the time I wanted I was helping people through the process, but I never had good news to deliver to people. No, like, it was nice to see at the end, but to get to that point,
but it's not. I don't think it's having to tell them the bad news, which is the problem. It's the way it is being delivered. Again,
so the individual,
service delivery is critical in public.
So it's a matter of so basically it's a matter of handing someone 3 book reports and telling them how you want things, or taking time.
Exactly.
You know,
and then don't just, like we talked earlier, don't just, they come this week, you just give them a bit of comments, and then they fix those comments, and then they're coming back, and then you give them another set of comments. It's about how you deliver that service.
Spending, but spending quality time, and my dad taught me that.
Let me tell you. I mean, how many times people come to me when I was doing zoning, and I tell them no, but yet they still leave my office with a smile on their face.
Because beyond the no, there was an explanation, and a conversation.
And then you explain, and then if there's any alternative, you have to offer.
So meaning the outcome, whether it was the same.
It was the same.
But you gave them the opportunity to sit with the city, and the city explains to the resident or business owner.
Yeah, this is what you can do within the parameters of the code. And then if there's alternative, you have to educate them and tell them. And then I always tell them, I'm not a financial advisor, but this.
You're an anomaly in local government, Nixon.
So,
and I'm not saying that to flatter you.
No.
I'm just saying that that's one of the things that has always led me to be interested in your path, in what you do.
Yeah, and then that's and I credit that a lot to PA, because you get to see a much greater picture than just setback is 25 here, or if you have 24 and a half, we cannot approve this. You see, because I see things, the whole.
Yeah.
As a whole, it's a holistic approach to government.
So, like, I always when I help people, for example, they say there's leaking coming in my house. I don't know what to do. I see cracks in the stucco. I see joints in the windows that are uncaulked. And I'll see a roofing issue, and they say, "What's causing the leak?" Mm-hmm. So I say, "Well, it's a holistic approach." Yeah. And it's not really, I don't think that's the right word, but you need to address.
No, exactly. That's how I always deal with people. So many times people come in and, but you sometimes you have to, they are people.
Any advice for our viewers in 2019?
Basically, always do your due diligence. Trying to open a business, don't go and lease a property without contacting zoning, and now you cannot open it and say, this city, no, it's not this city. There are regulations. Staff, they have their hands tied. Yes, they have some leeway, but they have to follow what the code that was given to them. So a lot of times, there are nothing that they can really do for you. There's nothing.
A lot of times, again, and these resources are very important for property owners.
Yeah.
I find myself, calling you about some advice.
Exactly. If you have that, you can call somebody. But always, spend $100, $200, get a zoning verification letter.
I've had clients who've bought land. And they've bought land for half a million. They bought land very cheap.
Yeah.
They bought land very cheap, residential and commercial, and they didn't want to do their due diligence. They didn't want to get a survey, which cost about $950
for commercial. Yeah.
So they're spending all this money, and then they find out they have an encroachment, or they find out.
There's some environmental sensitive land you cannot build on this, because people are not going to divulge that information to you if you don't do your due diligence, and then you inherit a property, and then you can only build so much on it. Mm-hmm. There may be some other, you look at, there's some deed restriction on the property. Mm-hmm. And you don't know all those things. So that's why it's always good, before you make that transaction, call zoning department. Or,
do you have, like, for example, when you were in zoning, did realtors call you a lot?
All the time. all the time, and then you have to help them, and then that's why they always ask me for my number. I mean, people would call us for me directly. I mean, because I work there from 8 to 5. I mean, you don't have to have an appointment with me. I mean, if I can see that man is give you that information, what's the big deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
look, I mean, the bottom line is, I think some of the deal is quality time, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your residents, whether it's with your job, and having the ability and organization to do that. And my whole synthesis of this is, I think that not only being a hard worker, but having the training and the education allows you to implement the process. For example, you can have two people exposed to the same thing, but one of them has the education and training to allow for a resident or business owner to get the time. It's all about the individual and how you handle it.
Yeah, it's out. I mean, again, I'm all about people. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
You cannot work in that field in not being a people person, because you're going to be dealing with all kind of,
So you're saying introvert, extrovert.
Exactly.
A lot of times I find myself representing property owners on my side, and the property owner has done a lot of damage with their reputation to the city. So the property owner, I'm brought in as kind of like a last resort when they can't handle things on their own, or they've tried to with other professionals who can't. People who will say, like permit runners, or people who will. For example, going back to that screen enclosure that is still up in the air, and I'm working with city staff. I had a client tell me, they said some other guy, and this was Monday of this week, and the client, I don't know if they were trying to negotiate with me, or I don't know if they were trying to they were giving me something factual or fake, but they said some other guy will come out here for half the price. And I asked him, I'm like, okay, but this is the time that it takes, and this is the process. And it kind of came out in the conversation. And the guy said he can come out a day before me. And I said, does he have the plans? Because I already did a free consultation with the client, and I did a plans request. And no, he doesn't have the plans. So what is he coming out to look at? How's he going to know if the structure's in compliance with plans? So again, they're coming out to take other people's money, and they can't help them.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, your field is.
I guess it's all about
Your field is very competitive, so you have to expect.
It's all about. I guess it's all about, can you help people? Because I know that if you couldn't help someone, you would tell them and direct them in a way. But I think in the private sector, what we get a lot is people trying to say they can help someone to get a quick, to get a bing bang boom transaction, and and these are people, and again, whether it's intentional, whether it's caused by a financial constraint in your business, you're making other people's problem your problem by your actions.
Yeah.
And that's and what I've seen in South Florida, and I have a lot of like I said earlier in the conversation, I have a lot of issues with acceptance. I understand, but I accept. So I see our melting pot, and I think that's the latest. I think that's an appropriate word. All these people coming here with different cultures from different places, and different ways of doing business. And in some countries, you could just start building, like we discussed. You could just start literally. You can start building that structure, and as high as you want, even and it might fall on people, down like a domino.
If I can call it a contribution to what I do, to my field, is that understanding. Some may call it's some sort of form of leadership, because leadership
Do you accept?
Yeah, no, but
do you accept?
Yes, I do. Because leadership, to be really effective, has to be contextualized. That's what I'm
Well,
trying.
everyone, we've taken a lot of time from Nixon.
Yeah.
This is one of my personal and close friends. I just want to end this interview, and I kind of might want to make this an ongoing thing, bringing content to my viewers. My name is Benjamin Sens. I am with Boss Construction Group, your South Florida permitting and code compliance specialist. And thank you very much, Nixon, for coming in.